Good evening. Welcome to the Divine Now. I'm so glad to have you here with me. Just spend a few minutes with a few hours with actually some friends of mine. And on the way home, I just was randomly thinking about Anne Frank and thinking about a friend of mine who's uh, dealing with cancer, breast cancer, surviving breast cancer, and going through chemo treatments. And it's been very challenging for her. But there's a quote by Anne Frank that really resonates with me when she said, I don't I don't focus on the misery, but rather I focus on the beauty that still remains. And that quote is riveting to me, coming from a teenager, just writing in her diary who didn't really feel like her words had much worth, but yet her diary has been translated globally around the world and speaking hope and trust and love in the midst of one of the most trying times in history we know as the Holocaust. And there have been other challenging times throughout history. We can look at slavery in the West and see the wisdom and the strength that came from people during those times as well. Um, but that statement about finding hope, um, focusing on the beauty that still remains, strikes me to my core because we're experiencing some very challenging times in our moment in history, from COVID to racial challenges and political upheavals and all the different things that we're facing here in America. Um, this whole notion that in the midst of all of it, God is in the cracks, the Spirit is in the cracks, life is in the cracks, truth is somewhere in the cracks of it all, and there's still beauty that remains. And somehow, that's where we find our balance. That's where we find our peace in seeing the beauty. And as I'm sort of closing out this evening and thinking about what remains, I want to hold on to the beauty. For my friend that's living with surviving cancer, to the people around the globe who are facing some of the most trying experiences that they've ever experienced, to war and fighting and disagreement and death and disease and all the ugly things that seem to grip us and sometimes some horrifying ways, there is still beauty that remains. And we get to decide which we focus on, whether we focus on the misery or whether we focus on the beauty. And I'm reminded of something that William um, Goth said. He said, I've come to the frightening conclusion that I am the decisive element. I get to decide how I look at the world, how I look at myself, how I look at things happening around me. It's not the things that matter most as much as it is how I interpret the things. And I think that's what Anne Frank was sort of getting us to focus on in her youth. Somehow she had the spiritual fitness to realize that there is something beyond the suffering, something that holds it all together. And I would call that something love. Others might call that something God or truth or source. But whatever that something is, in the midst of the pain, there are gifts that come along with the pain. Pain is not the end of the story wherever you are. You're not left naked in the face of pain. There's something beautiful to come. And I hope this little nugget encourages you where you are if you're facing something that's very challenging, that's beyond you, that's hard to sort of process. Remember the words from Anne when she says, I don't focus on the misery. I focus on the beauty that remains. May you be blessed and peace and love to you. Thank you.